Hi, I'm Zibby Owens, and you're listening to Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. This 30-minute podcast features a new author interviewed by me every single day, 365 days a year, for about 30 minutes. I am also the publisher for Zibby Books, which publishes 12 books a year in fiction and memoir. Our books are already out now. You can check it out on zibbybooks.com. And we have a magazine called Zibby Mag, where we have lots of wonderful essays and lifestyle features. That's at zibbymag.com. We have classes at zibbyclasses.com. And I recently opened a bookstore in LA called Zibby's Bookshop at 1113 Montana Avenue at 11th Street in Santa Monica. I hope that you are able to enjoy some of our other offerings. But this here podcast is the basis of all of it and started in 2018. And no matter what I do, this is basically my favorite thing. Enjoy. Susan Patterson and Susan DiLallo, along with the one and only James Patterson, are authors of the novel Things I Wish I Told My Mother. James Patterson is one of the best-known and biggest-selling writers of all time, and he's been on this podcast twice before, once for his memoir and once for House of Wolves with Mike Lupica. His books have sold in excess of 400 million copies worldwide. He's the author of some of the most popular series of the past 2 decades, the Alex Cross Women's Murder Club Detective Michael Bennett and private novels, and has written many other #1 bestsellers, including standalone thrillers and nonfiction. He's passionate about encouraging children to read, inspired by his own son, who was a reluctant reader. He also writes a range of books for young readers, including the Middle School, Dog Diaries, Treasure Hunters, and Max Einstein series. James has donated millions in grants to independent bookshops and has been the most borrowed adult author in UK libraries for the past 14 years in a row. He lives in Florida with his family. And interestingly, on Shelf Awareness, there was just an excerpt that he tweeted concern about the process by which a book becomes a New York Times bestseller. So you can dig into that if you are interested. Susan DiLallo Patterson is his wife, but now she is the main author on this book. She has a Bachelor of Science, Master of Fine Arts degree from the University of Wisconsin-Madison, where she was also an All-American swimmer. She is the author of the children's book, Big Words for Little Geniuses, a New York Times bestseller. Things I Wish I Told My Mother is her first book for adults. The book was also written by Susan DiLallo. Welcome. Today I have Susan Patterson and James Patterson here to talk about Things I Wish I Told My Mother, a novel. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
I have to say, at first I thought this was going to be a memoir. And then I was like, oh, this didn't really happen. Like, what did they wish they told? Anyway, okay, why don't you tell listeners a little bit about the book and what inspired the idea for it and what it's about?
Go for it.
Well, my mom passed away almost 4 years ago. And, we were really close, but, mothers and daughters have their dynamics. And just about a week afterwards, it just really struck me that I was really bothered. I had something to tell her and I couldn't, and it wasn't anything significant or whatever. But I just sort of blurted the title out, and Jim said, "Ooh, I think that could be a really nice book." So it sort of evolved from that.
I thought that it was a great title, and in my opinion, having been involved a little bit and having read it now a couple of times, that the book lives up to the title. Which, for me anyway.
Absolutely.
And it just was really great. I mean, having then accumulated all of her things and going through her things, and how it is, you discover things that you hadn't seen in a long time. There was just so many memories and everything else. And the stories, is fiction, but there are a few little probably truths woven in through it, and just the idea of travel. And my parents always took me to great places growing up, and as a result, I also did the same with Jack. We still go on trips. That's our son. But so it was just sort of a journey like that, and a kind of honoring my mom, and it was a great joy to write. And then Susan DiLallo also lost her mom in the same year. She had sort of a different experience with her mom. So, I mean, it was all great. And we had such a wonderful time doing it.
Susan's mother was 98 and Susan DiLallo's mother was 93. And both died in the same year. This isn't about them, as you said, Zibby. It's not a memoir, but it is a novel about 2 other two other women, and they're very different. One is a doctor, and she's a little stern, and she's, and then the daughter is an artist, and they couldn't be more different. And they, what happens in the book is they decide they're going to go to Europe, going to travel together, and they'd like to, instead of being mother and daughter, they want to evolve into being best friends and adults. And of course, that doesn't really happen, but it's a nice thought.
The idea was you have to go to Paris, right? Because you have to go to Paris. And that's actually one thing that Jack and I always did. If we picked someplace to go, we always said we had to go to Paris. And then my heritage being mostly Norwegian, that was just, and I just thought it was a different place that most people, maybe weren't as aware of, but it's such a beautiful place with such nice people. And a little different.
Well, I'm so sorry about the loss of your mother and Susan's loss of her mom. I lost my grandmother at 97, and it doesn't matter how old they are. You still miss them just as much. It doesn't mean like, okay, I get it, they're that age. It's still like the sense of loss and the love that's like no longer in the world. So anyway.
Yeah. And Sue's mother was so sharp, even at 99, 98, whatever. And she was a double major at University of Wisconsin. She was in economics and nursing, because in those days they thought it was impractical for her just to be an economics major. Otherwise she probably would have been running Merrill Lynch or something.
Or
very smart, very smart.
But she always used to say that to me too. She said, "I just can't believe my age. I mean, I don't feel any different inside. I mean, my age," she just was always blown away. And she always used to fib about her age until she got to be 97. And then she started using it the other way. She's like, "Do you realize how old I am?" But it was all, it was fun. But she did. She really never wanted anybody to know her age. And she did, for the girl from Wisconsin, she was pretty sharp in terms of, I mean, she was a beautiful dresser. She loved, great elegance and all that. But it was kind of funny because when you think about it, like, I don't know where she, wore all these things. But
and one of the cool things about the book to me is just the way we're all laughing here. There's a lot of laughter in the book. And tears. And tears. And I think that's appropriate for a mother-daughter novel, which it really is. And obviously there are others, but it's a rich vein. I mean, it really is such an area. And I'm sure most of the people watching, listening can appreciate, my mom. Oh yeah, my daughter.
They all have their own, it may not be exactly that same story, but they all have a story for sure about this. They can drive you nuts sometimes, but that's what I tell Jack. That's my job, right? And I used to tell him, "Hey, you weren't born with a set of instructions. So you know what that's like, right?"
My daughter said, like, usually you don't annoy me, but like sometimes you do. And I'm like, but don't I annoy you when I'm saying no to the things that you want? And she's like, well, yeah. And I'm like, well, that's what happens. Then I'm doing a good job. I love the idea in the book, how you constructed it around one of those sort of Hail Mary moments when the mother's in the hospital in the beginning and the daughter says, well, if we get out of here, like, I promise we'll just go on a trip. And I could just feel myself saying something like that and then like not thinking it through. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, wait, now we're going on this whole trip. So I loved even like the premise of that. And of course, like the whole twist at the end, which, I did not see coming. And I guess that's the point of a twist. But anyway, I just love all the adventures that they took together. And even the way you describe the mom. And now that I'm hearing about your mom with the great dressing, how, they go to the airport and the mom is dressed up in her like Chanel suit or whatever it is, that it's, so ready to go. And the daughter's like, what is going on here? But traveling for anyone, mothers and daughters in particular, but any sort of ill-suited travelers trying to like make it work is so rife with comedy and drama and all of that, particularly when you throw the love interest in the mix as well. So tell me about that decision. How did that come about?
Well, I don't know, how many boyfriends did you have along the way that your mom didn't necessarily approve of? And maybe it was just one little tiny comment. It could have, and unless you really knew where that was coming from, you might not pick up on it. But, I don't know.
It just kind of happened.
Yeah. My mom definitely approved of Jim, though.
Oh, okay. No wonder I liked her.
She did. I mean, I have to say, Jim and my mom had a terrific relationship.
Yeah, I loved her. She's a great, great, great person. Yeah.
Oh,
Not often said about mother-in-laws, but
But in this case, yes. How did the two of you collaborate, and how did you work with Susan to write this together? I'm always so interested in
well, we are
collaborating
going to
on a
get
book.
divorced now because of the experience. But
Not quite.
actually, Sue's my favorite co-writer. I was involved on the fringes of this thing, so I'll let Sue tell the story. I had a little involvement, but Susan and Susan, the two Susans as we call them.
Yeah. I've known Susan for a long time. I mean, I actually kind of knew her husband better, but she just, I mean, we hadn't really spent that much time together. And then we just started, there was just something about her that she's such a pleasure to be around. She's laughs at I mean, she's just super upbeat, and sort of the comical way we had the situations, even though they were different. And
well, they have the shared experience.
You know, and talking about our moms, so it was fun. I mean, you know, just kind of laughing and, oh, can you believe, you know, going back through our stories.
And then they went to Europe together to research. So they had to go to Paris and then to Scandinavia.
I'm so sorry.
No, but we had the best time. We just did. We decided, really enjoyed looking for different places. You know, we saw the Northern Lights and, you know, would go to these restaurants and really examine the menu and I'll pick up on we'd sit in, the research was great. Sit in the windows in the hotel and having a little afternoon snack or a drink or whatever. And then really doing a lot of people watching. And we just really tried to get involved in the local culture. And she hadn't been to Norway before, so she was pleasantly surprised. You know, of course, the two of us had been to Paris many times. And we had just such a good time. I mean...
And they couldn't be more different.
Yeah.
Sue, the tall Scandinavian, and Susan, the shorter Jewish. It was a good combo.
And she'd be, trying to get her suitcase in the overhead bin. I'm like, okay, just give it to me, okay? Like, But we did. We really hit it off well, and it was fun. And, we were all talking nonstop, of course, about different ideas along the way.
Outlining the book as they researched. Yeah.
It was good. It was good research.
That's
a lot of fun.
I want to set a book someplace I want to go just for the sake of research.
Right. Exactly.
Very, very.
That's right.
I mean, the idea sort of came to because of researching, like I said, some of the history of, the family history. And I had a lot of research on different places where my family had come from and a lot of the names. So we cherry picked a few names we liked and kind of worked them in. So that Richard guy was actually, I think he was that was on my mother's side. I think it was my great grandfather's name or something like that. So there's a lot of, stuff in there that has personal reference.
Both the daughter and the mother have a love interest story during the trip, which is kind of interesting.
And Ormston is my mother's maiden name. So we got that in there too.
Yeah, there's this whole notion of sort of lost loves or the path's not taken. And, what do you...
Yeah.
Where does love go as you get older? And,
Oh, here it is.
Oh, so sweet.
Well, it's been a lot of fun too with Jim working on it. So it was great. And I really appreciate all of his help, of course.
Well, my biggest contribution, I would go for coffee and sandwiches. That was my
I'm sure you have to do with it, but maybe not. If the sandwiches were good enough. I mean,
but like the idea, that was huge.
When you sat down to write it with Susan, did you each take how did you actually do it? How did you do
we just, we really just chatted a lot. And I think a lot of it, we had a notion for the outline, which Jim is always famous for, and it really helps, and the idea of the travel. And then we just sort of worked in all these stories. One, for example, we took a train from Oslo over to Bergen. And at first it's not that interesting, but then it gets really beautiful. You go over the glaciers, and there were a group of women of different ages just sitting there giggling, laughing, and they were all knitting. And so that is in the story. And this sweater that I have on is actually from Crystal Ripple, who's in the book. She knitted me this sweater.
Wow.
So it was like little stories like that we just, compiled and put them in. And it just sort of, it seemed really easy. I mean, I may probably exaggerating, but it just seemed to flow pretty nicely. A lot of just shared experiences, that kind of thing.
Well, one thing, each time the mom was sort of in the hospital or went to the ER or whatever, there was this sense from the daughter of seeing her mom in this whole new way, right? The mom is such a strong, vibrant character and this big deal OBGYN and like just has so much respect and power and all this stuff. And yet as soon as somebody is in a hospital bed, everything stripped away. There's this sort of sadness just from seeing them shrunken literally and figuratively in that moment. And I feel like you capture that really well in the book. And, it's not an easy moment when you have to look at someone that you love in that different way.
Right. That's so true. And it's hard for also, Dr. Liz, Dr. O, that she knew really what, was going on. And then probably like every other patient doesn't really believe it could happen to them or doesn't want it to. So,
I think it was close enough to that to both Susans had been through that. So I think that helped to make the writing particularly poignant and realistic.
Yes, absolutely. Were you sad to finish it and have to like put the characters aside?
Yeah, I mean, we've sort of had it for a little while, waiting for this opportunity just before Mother's Day to bring it out. But yeah, I really just enjoyed it so much because Jim and I had done the 3 children's books a few years ago, the Big Words for Little Geniuses, and that was so great. I just absolutely loved it. And then, wow, this is, another great experience, and it really was a joy to do. I absolutely
and the
loved
response has been great. What was that one?
it says we've had.
There were just a lot of reader reviews already, like Goodreads and stuff like that. What was it?
I highly recommend this beautiful, exquisite tearjerker for all readers. It has something for everyone, and no one will have a dry eye at the conclusion, but your heart will be oh so full. And she says, I'm giving it 5 stars only because I can't give it 1 million.
Oh,
and
a lot of nice, a
lot of nice ones. Like they were speechless.
I'm kind of jealous because I don't think these guys are reviewed.
And
kind of irritating.
The whole, it was actually a pretty long review, that particular one. And when I read it to Jim, he said, did you write that? But there were a lot of good ones. I mean, it makes me feel so happy to read that. I feel like a lot of it was just this is one thing I wish I could tell my mom for sure. I mean, even though she would be annoyed if she was portrayed as Dr. Liz, but that would drive her a little nuts. But I think she would totally she would be so happy and it would be such a joy for her to, to realize the honor.
Yeah.
Okay, you have to talk now because
Yeah. Well, that's the thing about the book. There is a lot of fun in it, and it is very emotional. It's real, and I think that's why readers are responding. And even the selling is big. I mean, because it's a first novel, but a lot of it's and Little Brown's like wow, it's kind of cool.
That's great.
I'm really excited. Really,
it's
really even going to be in your bookstore, I hope, Zibby.
Yes, of course. You have to come in and sign or do. It's also, as you said before, perfect for Mother's Day. Such a great gift, and I think everybody needs to take those pauses and reflect whether you still have your mom or you recently lost her.
Right. But I know you just sort of never know,
Yeah.
And that's, I think, a cool thing about all of us just thinking that way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's a quote, I don't remember where this came from, but I just love it. And it relates to this book. And I think it relates to 20-year-olds or people who are older. My time here is short. What can I do the most beautifully?
Oh.
I love that. It's just such a great wake-up call. In a very eloquent way. And this book, to some extent, same thing. Things I wish I told my mother. Well, yeah, okay. Well, you mothers and daughters, start sharing, start talking to one another. Don't wait till you can't talk to each other anymore,
I've also had several people say to me they're going to take their mother on a trip.
Oh.
that they had, that this
Yeah,
really.
well, we'll see how that
We'll
works
see if they just like you said earlier, if once they say it, then there's some sort of little.
Yeah.
But I never think you do regret those things. Even you take all the emotions, and I just read it a couple of weeks ago again. Because you think you're going to remember every single thing, and I did. I still laughed and cried at the appropriate spots. So
Yeah.
I feel like okay, I like it. Sometimes you get too close to it, you can't see it. But
No, it's very moving and
yeah.
very real, and the prose is so accessible, and just you forget you're reading. You just like fly through it, which is always
Thanks.
wonderful. I recently was pitched this travel idea. I think the company I can send it to you after. I think it's called Explorer X, but they do vacations based on your book. So they could do they could plan a mother-daughter trip to Paris and Norway and go on to all these places, and they collaborate with you and make it really fun, because I feel like you should offer that.
That is a great idea. Yeah.
I'll forward it along or whatever. I'm sure lots of places.
Any trip that starts with Paris is that's a good start.
That's true. That's very true.
I can't go wrong there.
Susan, what do you like to read when you're not writing? And aside from all of your husband's books, I'm assuming.
Well, yeah, I know that could keep me busy for 365 days a year, right? And I'm not just saying this because she gave us a great quote, but I always say my second favorite author is Ellen Hildebrand. I do love her books, and they're just so easy and fun to read, and just like she is, she's a lot of fun and has incredible energy. But years ago, Jim brought me a manuscript of hers, and it was called The Blue Bistro. And he said, "You know what? I think you're really going to just like." And I mean, I remember where I was when I read it. So she's one of my favorites.
Yeah, I think that was one of her first. She came out of Iowa writers,
right?
Which is interesting. Yeah, we both Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow is another one that we've been read, which is a terrific. And neither one of us has a lot of interest in video games and stuff, but it's still a terrific book.
Yes.
Even though it's about video games and players, which is kind of cool. You can get that interested in the characters and have no interest in what their passion is.
Yeah. That's true. And how did it feel to you, sort of taking a back seat in this project versus sort of running the ship? Yeah.
No, you know what? It's great. When our son Jack was growing up, and as he now is out in the world, and we always made the distinction. We always say we're happy for him as opposed to we're proud of him.
Mm.
So sometimes when you're proud of somebody, it's because they're doing what you want them to do, But happy for him that he chose schools that he thought would work for him, and they did. I'm happy that he's with somebody and that's working out nicely. I'm happy that that's working out nicely. Or we are.
It seems like
so that's
he
why
likes what he does.
Yeah, so I'm happy for Sue. She's having she had fun putting together her book, and I think it turned out well. So I'm probably proud too, but happy for the most part.
Well, I've been going back through. My dad did a lot of photography, so I'm going back through years of trying to find pictures of me and my mom. It's kind of fun to look back through all these photos, and then I get sidetracked because I see some of my cousins and my aunts and uncles, and I think I got to get those because I am pretty close to them all, and I want to send those photos, but then you got to scan them, and there's some work involved. But I'm shelving that for later. But it is really great. I mean, that's another one of my passions is photography. So I really love doing.
We're doing a little book tour together. Well, that'll be fun.
That's great. Where are you going to go?
Going to not to Paris and Norway, but
we're going to Nebraska. Actually, where
was it? Omaha.
Omaha
and Madison, Wisconsin. Because that's part of the book, and Chicago.
And then actually, Sue's going out to LA for the LA Book Festival, and I think she's going to go to your store.
Oh, good. I'll be there for the festival too.
Yeah.
I said the only other thing I want to do in LA besides go to this festival is to go see your bookstore.
Oh,
and I mean that. I really want to see it. I think it's so cool that are not too many people open bookstores anymore. So it's really great.
Thank you. Well,
it's good to have a good one. And I'm sure you did a beautiful job.
I like it. I'm happy with it.
Yeah.
So are you going to write one called Things I Wish I Told My Father? Have you thought about that?
I don't know, but maybe there's
That's a good thought.
Yeah, okay. Okay, thanks. I like that idea.
No problem. A little companion piece,
Yeah, we have, there are a couple other little things that have bubbled up out of this. So maybe
There certainly is. There's a lot of truth to that book, though, too. A friend of ours, literally, like in the last day and a half, went up. His father was 99 and dying, and he just went up and said goodbye to his father.
And he did pass away a day later.
Yeah.
So he got there just in time, but yeah.
So there's truth to that one too. And, with dads, it's a lot of times the things aren't said. When I went with my father right at the end, and I was fortunate enough to see him before he died, and we said we loved each other, which I don't ever remember saying to him. And we hugged for the first time that I remember. I'm sure he hugged me when I was a baby, but that was the first time, So that there's a lot of truth in that other. But I don't know that Sue will do that book, but there's a book to be written there for sure.
Yeah,
guys are better now. I find with some of my older friends, we can say "I love you" male to male. So we're getting better.
Mm-hmm. You're learning, catching on.
Yeah.
Well, it is hard. It is hard sometimes to share emotions, even if you feel it, Sometimes it's just hard to kind of.
And that's the thing about Things I Wish I Told My Mother. It is about mothers and daughters sharing emotion.
Yes.
And saying all those things and not holding back. And,
if nothing else, and a chance for mothers and daughters to find out about even the loves in their past. I feel like people are very buttoned up about that. Like, what happened before you married my dad or whatever. People are, oh, no.
Yeah.
But
or those are good conversations.
Or other things that they just did in their life that they may not have shared that, how you try and be this, well, not perfect, but try and show something. But when you have a kid growing up and then you don't want them to know that maybe you have done.
I don't want to hear too much.
Okay, maybe we don't want to talk about that. We're not going to talk about it now. That's for sure.
But, even, they put out a lot of reading copies and already you're getting this thing with mothers and daughters sharing the book and or getting their own or kind of mother-daughter book club popping up.
Yeah.
And that's another thing because that when a book can stimulate you to talk about your own situations, your own lives, your own mother, your own daughter, that's kind of fun too.
Yeah, maybe it's a little bit of an icebreaker. Could be a really fun mother-daughter reading group or book club sort of thing.
Yeah, but it is happening on its. Obviously, we'd love that or Sue would love that to happen, but it's happening without any stimulus other than the book.
That's great. Well, I'm going to give it to my mom. That's for sure.
Oh, great! I love it. Thank you. Thanks so much.
I have to give her this early copy, but maybe I'll wait and give her a real one. Anyway.
Oh, wow. We can get you you only have the advanced reader?
Well, actually, this one's this looks like the finished one, right? This is the finished. Yeah.
Yeah, that is. Yeah, I
have all my dog-eared pages and all of that.
Oh, gotcha.
When I'm reading, get interested in things. I keep turning the pages down. So, well, thank you both for coming on. Thanks for talking about this great book.
Thank you.
Come visit your book at my store and come sign copies and all of that. And thank you so much for the book.
Thank you.
All that it
Thanks for reading it. Thanks for sharing. Bye, Zibby.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Thanks for listening to this episode of Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram at Zibby Owens and at Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. Also sign up for my newsletter at zibbyowens.com and sign up for my virtual book club and meet lots of authors on Zoom every other week. Thanks so much to Steve and Ryan at Texture Sound for the sound editing. And thank you to Morning Moon Productions for providing this fantastic intro and outro music.